So, within the Cinch form performance method, we have rider type, and that is basically, categorizing athletes into the real, cycling position, I guess they would have in the sport of cycling. So what that means is that athletes and cyclists stop thinking about like how they are in all parts of cycling, and they look at themselves in one specific perspective. This is important because you can't be good at everything. And just like in business and all other areas in life, when people try to become good at everything, they become really average and mediocre overall. And I was seeing that often in cycling as people were trying to be as good as another rider on climbs, and then be able to keep up in the sprints, and be able to pull harder than everyone on the group rides, and then be a super good time trialist, and then be able to sprint up short climbs, and and the other side of it, right, was obviously like a lot of people were very unsatisfied with what was happening because they were trying to do everything. But the other side of it was that they never really felt that much like ownership in the direction they were going with their training. In general, most cycling training out there is very bland and boring. Everyone's doing these 20-minute intervals and trying to raise their FTP and looking at their critical power and average power. And I mean, it's just bland. There's no flavor. There's no direction. So I created rider types where it's like, guys, like these are your skills. This is your ability. This is your specific direction to those skills and ability. Now I want you to go out and crush this stuff. And as soon as I started doing that, people started having a lot more fun on their rides and in their training. But what was cool is they started to really have a lot more control in their events and their group rides, because they really only acted in certain ways in certain moments. They weren't trying to react with everything. They were looking and saying, okay, I'm a Classics TT rider. So this rider does like this type of breakaway on this type of terrain. So instead of saying like my goal is to make the breakaway, it's like, okay, I'm gonna sniff out the terrain, I'm gonna sniff out the riders, and if anything goes, or if I get to this terrain and there's nothing ahead, I'm gonna go, because this terrain is made for a Classics TT rider. And when I go, I'm gonna use my specific Classics TT plays, which are, intervals are basically built around a Classics TT rider in a way that it works, that it uses the zones, and it's a powerful tool for people to drop people and get ahead. But what's cool is it gives them the control, and they say, I know I can do this, right? I've done this in training. I know where to apply this. I know how this is going to make me feel. So that's kind of the first dimension of the rider type. It gives people the skill sets. It increases their ability in the right areas, and it helps them sort of build strategy around those things. But the next cool thing about it is that it helps people pick events. Instead of just signing up for events because other people are there or because they're in the area, start to pick and choose events that fit your rider type. Same like a pro cycling team. I was a GC rider. You didn't see me doing Paris Roubaix year after year after year, right? Like I was in the climbing races. I was in the stage races. So like, teaching riders to look for events, know their characteristics, know their ability, their skill sets, and help and the strategy with their direction, and then put them into events that they can perform well in. It's really cool too, because they feel totally in control. They feel like they're progressing in an important area, and they're becoming a black belt in their division of their sport. And the last part that's super cool about rider types is it teaches people to become more of a teammate to other athletes. You don't necessarily have to be on a cycling team to feel like a teammate, but like you can get in your group ride, or you can get in your peloton, and you can see like, okay, that person's a climber. I'm a Classics, or I'm a sprinter, or I'm a puncher, or I'm a TT, or whatever. You don't need to go head and head with the climber. In fact, you could kind of be their teammate, right? And say like, hey, like, this ride is all about you. Like this is all climbing. Hey, so I'm just going to get on the front and make a really hard tempo before this climb to launch you on this climb. So you can kind of feel like you have a role in every sort of ride. You just align that role with your rider type. You can feel like a teammate. You can create that fulfillment at the end of the day, even though, right, that day may have not been made for you. So as a team, and as a business, we've really excelled at when we created these rider types, and I'm really excited to, we're working on some really cool stuff, and I think the future of amateur cycling and professional cycling is athletes, really identifying that rider type and really working to become the best versions of themselves in those rider types.